Ambassador Elena Vasquez walked through the grand hallway of the Galactic Council chambers. Her shoes clicked against the crystal floor. Above her head, the ceiling showed the stars of 1,000 worlds. It should have been beautiful. Today, it felt like a tomb. She carried a datapad in her hands. The numbers on it told a simple story. 15,000 human refugees needed help. They were running from a war zone in the Outer Rim. A war the Council had started. A war they had sent human soldiers to fight. Elena reached the main chamber doors. They opened with a soft hiss. Inside, the Council members sat on their raised platforms. The Tsar, then Arbiter, dominated the center position. His blue skin seemed to glow under the lights. His 4 arms rested on the armrests of his throne. His face showed nothing but boredom. "Ambassador Vasquez," the Arbiter said. His voice echoed in the chamber. "You have requested this emergency session. Speak." 4. 4. 4. 4. Elena stepped forward. She had done this 100 times before. She had asked for help. She had begged for resources. She had pleaded for protection. Each time, the Council had given just enough to keep humanity working. Just enough to keep human soldiers fighting their wars. Just enough to keep human engineers fixing their machines. "Honorable Council," Elena began. Her voice was steady. "I come before you with an urgent request. 15,000 human civilians are trapped in the Kepler 442 system. The fighting has reached their colony. They need immediate evacuation." The Arbiter looked at his data screen. "The conflict in that system is regrettable. However, the greater good requires—" "They are civilians," Elena interrupted. She never interrupted. The Council members shifted in their seats. "They are families. Children. They have nothing to do with this war." A Council member from the Vrixian Empire spoke up. Her voice was cold. "Ambassador, humanity volunteered military support for this operation. Casualties were always a possibility." "We volunteered soldiers," Elena said. Her knuckles turned white around the datapad. "These are not soldiers. These are people who built a life on that world. They farm. They teach. They have done nothing wrong." The Arbiter waved one of his hands dismissively. "The Council transport fleet is occupied with more pressing matters. Your request is denied." Elena felt something crack inside her chest. It was not loud. It was not dramatic. It was the quiet sound of patience dying. "More pressing matters," she repeated slowly. "What matters are more pressing than 15,000 lives?" "The stability of the galactic economy," the Arbiter said. He sounded like he was explaining something simple to a child. "The continued function of trade routes. The maintenance of order. These things affect trillions. Your refugees are an unfortunate but acceptable loss for the greater galactic good." Acceptably loss. Elena had heard those words before. She had heard them when human miners died in accidents on alien worlds. She had heard them when human soldiers were sent to hold impossible positions. She had heard them when human scientists worked themselves to death on Council projects. Acceptably loss. Around the chamber, some Council members nodded. A few looked uncomfortable. Most looked at their screens, already bored with the discussion. The Exar then Arbiter smiled. It was not a kind smile. "Ambassador, humanity has prospered under Council guidance. You have ships. You have technology. You have a voice in these chambers. All of this came from us. Perhaps it is time to remember that your species owes the Council a debt of gratitude." Something in Elena's face changed. The Arbiter saw it. His smile faded slightly. "A debt of gratitude," Elena said quietly. "For what? For allowing us to die in your wars? For permitting us to fix your machines? For giving us the honor of being your servants?" "Ambassador Vasquez," the Arbiter's voice carried a warning. "You forget yourself." "No," Elena said. She looked around the chamber. She looked at each Council member. "I think I am remembering myself. I am remembering that my species has bled for you. We have built for you. We have sacrificed for you. And you call us an acceptable loss. She placed the datapad on the floor. It made a sharp sound in the silent chamber. I came here to ask for help, Elena said. I came here believing that the council valued life. That honor meant something. That service deserved respect. She turned toward the door. I was wrong. Ambassador, the arbiter stood. Elena walked out. She did not look back. She did not bow. She did not follow protocol. Behind her, she heard the council members talking. Some were angry. Some were laughing. She heard the arbiter's voice rise above the others. Humans, he said, and the word dripped with contempt. They forget their place. Elena walked through the crystal hallway. She passed alien diplomats who stared at her. She passed guards who whispered. She reached her ship in the docking bay. Inside, her communications officer looked up. Ambassador, how did... He stopped. He saw her face. Send a message, Elena said. Her voice was ice. Send it to every human colony. Every human ship. Every human station. Code authorization. Vasquez Alpha 0. Send it now. The officer's hands moved over his console. What should the message say? Elena looked out the viewport. She looked at the Galactic Council station. She thought about every human who had died because the Council deemed them expendable. She thought about every family torn apart, every dream crushed, every life spent like cheap currency. Tell them, Elena said, that I tried diplomacy. Tell them the Council's response. And tell them. She paused. Tell them that humanity is done asking for permission. The message went out across faster-than-light communication networks. It reached Mars in 3 minutes. It reached Alpha Centauri in 20. It reached the furthest human colonies in 6 hours. Across human space, people watched the footage. They watched their ambassador stand before the council. They watched her plead for lives. They watched the arbiter laugh. They watched him call 15,000 humans an acceptable loss. In stations and colonies, in ships and settlements, humans stopped what they were doing. Engineers put down their tools. Soldiers looked at their alien commanders. Scientists saved their work and closed their files. Something had broken. Something that could not be repaired. The galaxy did not know it yet. But everything had just changed. The species they had taken for granted. The workers they had dismissed. The servants they had mocked. They were done serving. The day humanity snapped had arrived. And the consequences would reshape the galaxy forever. The message reached Chief Engineer Marcus Chen at 0800 hours station time. He was deep in the engine core of the Vrixian battleship Dominant Will. The reactor was making a sound it should not make. Marcus had been fixing alien reactors for 12 years. He knew every sound they made. He read the message on his wrist display. He watched the footage of Ambassador Vasquez. He watched the arbiter laugh. Acceptable loss. Marcus looked at the reactor. He had spent 3 days diagnosing the problem. He knew exactly what was wrong. He knew how to fix it. The repair would take 6 hours. Without it, the battleship would be stuck in orbit for weeks. He picked up his tools. He walked out of the engine room. The Vrixian officer on duty saw him leaving. Engineer Chen? The repair is not complete. I know, Marcus said. Then where are you going? Marcus did not answer. He kept walking. Behind him, alarms started to sound as the reactor's problems got worse. Across the galaxy, the same scene played out thousands of times. Human engineers walked away from their posts. They left machines half-repaired. They abandoned projects, mid-construction. They took their tools and their knowledge, and they simply stopped. On the mining station Kepler X, Dr. Sarah Kim was training a team of alien engineers. They were learning how to maintain the station's life support systems. The systems were human-designed. The aliens had never bothered to learn how they worked. Why would they? Sarah's tablet buzzed. She read the message. She watched the footage. She thought about her sister, who had died on Kepler 442. Her sister who had been an acceptable loss. Dr. Kim? One of the alien engineers held up a component. You were explaining the pressure regulation system? Right. Sarah saved her training files. She encrypted them with a password. She stood up. Class dismissed, she said. Permanently. But we do not understand how to. You should have learned when you had the chance, Sarah said. She walked out. Behind her, the alien engineers stared at their incomplete notes and broken equipment. In the war zones, human soldiers received the message. They were scattered across 12 different conflicts. They fought in alien armies, under alien commanders, for alien causes. They had been called volunteers. Really, the Council had made it clear. Volunteer or lose access to Council technology. Volunteer or be labeled enemies of galactic peace. Sergeant Jake Morrison read the message in his foxhole. Artillery fire thundered in the distance. He commanded a unit of 30 human soldiers attached to a Zarthan assault division. They were supposed to take a fortified position at dawn. Jake looked at his soldiers. They were looking back at him. They had all seen the message. Pack up, Jake said. We are leaving. Sergeant? His corporal looked confused. The attack is scheduled for... C. The attack is cancelled, Jake said. We are going home. The Zarthan commander found them 20 minutes later. His translator made his voice sound harsh. Sergeant Morrison, your unit is not in position. Explain. We are withdrawing from this conflict, Jake said. You cannot withdraw. You are under Council authority. You will follow orders or face consequences. Jake looked at the Zarthan commander. He thought about all the humans who had died following alien orders. He thought about the battles they had won for species who called them expendable. No, Jake said. We will not. Then you are deserters. You will be arrested. Jake smiled. It was not a friendly smile. You are welcome to try. The Zarthan commander looked at the 30 human soldiers. They had their weapons. They had their armor. They had fought for 3 years without breaking. He looked at their faces and saw something new, something cold. He decided not to try. Within 48 hours, every human combat unit had withdrawn from every Council military operation. Wars that had been nearly won suddenly became unwinnable. Battle lines collapsed. Alien commanders sent desperate messages asking where their human units had gone. The messages went unanswered. On Earth, the United Human Council held an emergency session. Representatives from every human colony joined the meeting. Admiral James Wright stood at the podium. The galactic community is demanding answers, he said. They want to know why we have withdrawn our personnel. They want to know what we want. What do we tell them? A representative asked. Elena Vasquez stood. She had returned to Earth immediately after leaving the council chambers. Her face was calm. Her voice was steady. We tell them nothing, she said. We owe them no explanations. They called us expendable. We are taking them at their word. Ambassador. Another representative spoke up. If we withdraw completely, we risk losing access to council technology, to trade routes, to the benefits of galactic society. Benefits? Elena's voice was sharp. Tell me, Representative Chen, what benefits? The benefit of dying in their wars? The benefit of fixing their machines while they mock us? The benefit of being called acceptable losses? The chamber was silent. We have been the galaxy's servants, Elena continued. We have been grateful for scraps. We have accepted insults as if they were honors. And why? Because we were afraid. Afraid of being alone. Afraid of being cast out. She looked around the chamber. I am no longer afraid, and I do not believe humanity should be either. Admiral Wright spoke. What are you proposing? What? Complete withdrawal. Elena said. We recall every human from every council facility. We stop all cooperation. We close our borders. We cut all ties. That is essentially a declaration of war, someone said. No, Elena corrected. War requires engagement. This is disengagement. We are not attacking them. We are simply done serving them. What about humans who want to stay in council space? Another representative asked. They are free to choose, Elena said. But they choose as individuals, not as representatives of humanity. And they do so, knowing that the council sees them as expendable. The vote was called. The result was overwhelming. Humanity would withdraw. The announcement went out on all channels. The message was brief. Effective immediately, humanity withdraws all personnel, services, and cooperation with the Galactic Council. This is not a negotiation. This is not a protest. This is a fact. We are done. The Council's response came within hours. The Arbiter himself appeared on the galactic news networks. His face showed anger barely controlled. Humanity's betrayal will not be tolerated, he announced. They are bound by treaties. They are obligated by agreements. They will return to their duties or face the full consequences of their actions. On Earth, people watched the broadcast. They watched the Arbiter threaten them. They watched him demand their obedience. They laughed. For decades, they had feared Council disapproval. They had worried about losing Council support. They had bent and compromised and sacrificed. Now they realized something the Council had not. The Council needed humanity more than humanity needed the Council. Within a week, the galaxy began to understand this too. Supply chains broke down. Critical systems failed. Space stations drifted without maintenance. Medical facilities ran out of supplies. 40% of the galaxy's logistics network had relied on human labor. The Council had never noticed because humans had simply made everything work. Now nothing worked, and humanity watched from behind closed borders, silent and unmoved, as the galaxy that had called them expendable learned just how essential they truly were. The Galactic Council met in emergency session for the third time in 2 weeks. The grand chamber that had once felt powerful now felt empty. Outside, protests were growing. Inside, panic was setting in. The Arbiter looked at the reports scrolling across his screen. Every number was wrong. Every projection was catastrophic. Trade was down 60%. Food shipments had stopped reaching colony worlds. Medical supplies were running critical. And everywhere, the reports said the same thing. Humans had stopped working. This is unacceptable, the Arbiter said. His voice echoed in the chamber. We offered them civilization. We gave them a place in the galactic community. This is how they repay us? A council member from the Drenthian Collective spoke up. His voice was worried. Perhaps we were too harsh. Perhaps we should negotiate. Negotiate? The Arbiter's eyes flared. We do not negotiate with servants who forget their place. We remind them of the consequences of defiance. And how do we do that? Another member asked. They have closed their borders. They have recalled their ships. They are not responding to our communications. Then we make them respond, the Arbiter said. He turned to the military coordinator. Deploy the border fleets. Blockade human space. Cut off their access to the galaxy. When they realize the price of their foolishness, they will come begging to return. The vote passed. The Council's remaining military forces moved toward human territory. 50 warships took up positions around key human systems. The message was clear. Submit or be isolated. Humanity's response came 3 days later. It was not what the Council expected. Human fleets emerged from their borders. But they did not engage in battle. Instead, they broadcast on every open channel. Every species in the galaxy could receive the transmissions. Admiral Wright's face appeared on screens across Council space. Behind him stood a wall of data. Names, dates, numbers. Citizens of the Galactic Council, he began. For decades, humanity has served the Council faithfully. We fought your wars. We built your stations. We fixed your machines. Today, we show you the cost of that service. The data wall lit up. It showed casualty reports. Human soldiers killed in council wars. Thousands of names. Thousands of lives. These humans died fighting battles that were not theirs, Wright said. They died because the council asked, and we answered. The council called their deaths acceptable losses. Let us see if their families agree. More data appeared. It showed work-related deaths. Human engineers killed in industrial accidents on alien worlds. Human miners lost in collapses. Human scientists who worked until their bodies gave out. These humans died building the infrastructure you enjoy, Wright continued. They died alone, far from home, making your lives comfortable. The council did not even learn their names. White. The four. The council not even learned their names. The broadcast shifted. Now, it showed financial records. Contracts. Agreements. All of them heavily weighted against humanity. These documents show how the council has treated human labor, Wright said. We were paid less than other species for the same work. We were given the most dangerous assignments. We were denied the protections offered to others. And, when we asked for fairness, we were told to be grateful for the opportunity to serve. In living rooms and bars across the galaxy, ordinary citizens watched. They had not known. The council had not told them. Many had assumed humans were treated fairly. Now they saw the truth. The final segment of the broadcast showed recent footage. Ambassador Vasquez, standing before the council. The arbiter dismissing 15,000 human lives as acceptable losses. The laughter from some council members. This is what the council thinks of humanity, Wright said. This is what they think of service and sacrifice. We have withdrawn, not because we are ungrateful, but because we refuse to be expendable. The broadcast ended. The galaxy erupted in arguments. On the Vrixian homeworld, workers began to question their government. If humans had been exploited, who else was being mistreated? On Drenthian colonies, families of soldiers demanded answers. Why were they fighting wars while council members lived in luxury? The cracks in the council's authority began to show. The arbiter tried to suppress the broadcasts. He ordered them taken down. But humans had seeded them across thousands of servers. Every time one copy was removed, 10 more appeared. The truth was spreading faster than the council could contain it. And humanity was not done. Human intelligence had spent years embedded in council systems. Human technicians had maintained council networks. They knew where everything was. They knew every secret. Now they released those secrets. Financial scandals appeared on news networks. Council members had been stealing from public funds for decades. Species that were supposed to receive aid had been forgotten while the money went to private accounts. Military reports surfaced. Wars that were supposed to be defensive were actually about resources. Colonies that were supposed to be protected had been abandoned when defending them became inconvenient. Personal communications leaked. Council members mocking the citizens they were supposed to serve. Making deals that benefited themselves while their people suffered. The arbiter watched his carefully built authority crumble. He called another meeting. This time, his voice was desperate. We must respond with force, he said. We must show humanity the price of defiance. We must face reality, said Representative Thala of the Drenthian Collective. She was young for a council member. She had not been part of the old guard. The humans are right. We have treated them poorly. Worse, we have betrayed the principles we claim to uphold. You speak treason, the arbiter said. I speak truth, Thala countered. And the truth is that our citizens are watching. They have seen how we treated humanity. They are wondering if we treat them the same way. If we continue down this path, we will not just lose humanity. We will lose everything. Other council members began to speak up. Younger voices. Voices that had been silent before. They had seen the broadcasts. They had seen the evidence. They could not deny it. Perhaps negotiations are appropriate, one suggested. The arbiter slammed his hand on his throne's armrest. I will not negotiate with... His words were cut off. Every screen in the chamber lit up with a new broadcast. This time, it was not data. It was not historical records. It was current intelligence. And it showed something that made the arbiter's blood run cold. The broadcast showed his son, his heir. The young Tsar then was wearing combat armor. Human combat armor. He was part of a human mercenary unit. The young Tsar then spoke directly to the camera. Father, I joined humanity's forces 3 years ago. I did it because I saw what you were doing. I saw how you treated them, how you used them. I could not serve the council knowing what I know. He held up a data pad. These files contain evidence of your personal corruption, how you profited from human deaths, how you sold military positions, how you betrayed every principle you claimed to believe in. The broadcast cut out. The council chamber was silent. The arbiter stood slowly. His face showed shock, then rage, then something like fear. He looked around the chamber. Every council member was staring at him. This is fabricated, he said. His voice lacked conviction. This is human manipulation. Is it? Thala asked quietly. Or is it the truth finally catching up to you? The arbiter had no answer. Outside the council chambers, the galaxy continued to fracture. Some species called for reforms. Others demanded that their leaders negotiate with humanity. A few began to withdraw their own support from the council. The blockade around human space began to dissolve. Ships left their positions. Some captains refused orders. Others simply decided that fighting humans was not worth the cost. Humanity watched from behind their borders. They did not gloat. They did not celebrate. They simply waited to see what the galaxy would do next. The message was clear. Humanity had not attacked. They had simply revealed the truth. And the truth was burning down the old order faster than any weapon ever could. The arbiter sat alone in his chambers that night. He received a package. Inside was a simple item, a human combat helmet. The same one his son had worn in the broadcast. A note was attached. You taught me that some lives are expendable. I decided yours was one of them. Not through violence, through truth. The arbiter realized then what humans had known all along. The most powerful weapon was not military might. It was the simple act of showing people what their leaders really were. And once people saw the truth, nothing would ever be the same again. The collapse came faster than anyone expected. Within 3 weeks of humanity's withdrawal, the galactic infrastructure was failing in cascading waves. It started small. A delayed food shipment here. A malfunctioning medical scanner there. But small problems became large ones when nobody knew how to fix them. On the mining colony of Hesperus 9, the water recycling system stopped working. The alien engineers stared at it helplessly. The human engineer who had maintained it was gone. He had left instructions, but the instructions assumed a level of knowledge that nobody on the colony possessed. Within days, water rationing began. Within 2 weeks, the colony was being evacuated. The pattern repeated across the galaxy. Stations lost life support. Ships drifted without working engines. Communication networks failed. Every problem traced back to the same source. Humans had been the ones maintaining everything, and now they were gone. The Galactic Council tried to restore order. They hired engineers from other species. They offered huge payments for technical expertise. But the new engineers quickly discovered something disturbing. Human systems were not just maintained by humans. They were designed in ways that other species struggled to understand. The logic was different. The approaches were unfamiliar. It is like they think in a different language, one frustrated Vrixian engineer said. The systems work, but I cannot understand why they work. And if I cannot understand them, I cannot fix them when they break. The council had not just lost human labor. They had lost human knowledge, and that knowledge had been so deeply woven into galactic civilization that removing it tore everything apart. Food became the first critical shortage. Human agricultural engineers had optimized farming across hundreds of worlds. They had developed systems that produced massive yields with minimal resources. Now those systems were failing, and nobody knew how to restart them. Breadlines formed on council worlds. Rationing became common. Protests turned into riots. Citizens demanded answers from their governments. Where is the food? Why are the systems failing? What happened to the humans who kept everything running? The governments had no good answers. They tried to blame humanity. They claimed the humans had sabotaged systems before leaving. But independent investigators found no evidence of sabotage. The systems had not been broken. They simply were not being maintained. The difference was subtle but devastating. Medical supplies were next. Human pharmaceutical companies had supplied 40% of the galaxy's medicines. When they closed their borders, those supplies stopped. Hospitals began running out of critical drugs. People died from treatable conditions because the treatments were not available. On the planet Drenthis Prime, a child died from an infection that should have been curable. Her mother stood outside the council headquarters with a sign. My daughter was an acceptable loss, too. The phrase spread. Protests took up the chant. We are all acceptable losses. We are all expendable. The council's authority was crumbling. In the council chambers, emergency sessions ran day and night. The old guard, led by the Arbiter, insisted that humanity must be forced to comply. They drafted plans for military action. They discussed sanctions and punishments. The younger members, led by Representative Thala, argued for a different approach. We cannot force them, Thala said during one heated debate. We do not have the military strength, even if such an action were moral, which it is not. Then what do you propose? The Arbiter demanded. That we beg them to return? That we admit weakness? I propose we admit truth, Thala said. We treated them poorly. We exploited their labor. We dismissed their lives. And now, we are facing the consequences of our own actions. You speak as if they are in the right. Perhaps they are, Thala said quietly. The chamber erupted in arguments. That night, Thala received a message through back channels. It came from Earth, from Ambassador Elena Vasquez herself. The message was simple. Some of us still believe in cooperation, but it must be cooperation between equals, not between masters and servants. If your faction is interested in genuine dialogue, we are willing to listen. Thala took the message to a secret meeting of like-minded council members. 30 representatives attended. They came from 15 different species. All of them were younger. All of them had seen the evidence of council corruption. All of them knew the old system was dying. We need to make a choice, Thala told them. We can follow the Arbiter and his allies into collapse, or we can reach out to humanity and try to build something new. The Arbiter still has supporters, someone warned. If we negotiate with humanity, he will call it treason. Then let him, another representative said. My world is starving. My people are suffering. I will not let them suffer more because of old pride and old prejudices. The vote was unanimous. They would reach out to humanity. The delegation traveled to the Sol system in secret. Human ships met them at the border. There was tension in the initial contact. Human captains remembered too many broken promises. But the message from Thala opened doors. They were brought to a space station orbiting Mars. Elena Vasquez met them in a conference room. The walls were plain metal. There were no grand decorations, no crystal floors or artistic ceilings. It was functional and honest. Welcome, Elena said. I admit, I did not expect this. We did not expect to be here, Thala replied. But we see what is happening in the galaxy. We see the suffering. We know it is our fault. The Council's fault, Elena corrected. Not yours personally, perhaps, but the system you were part of. Yes, Thala agreed. And we want to change that system. But we cannot do it without help. Without humanity's help. Elena studied the young representatives. She saw genuine regret in their eyes. She also saw desperation. That concerned her. "You need us because everything is falling apart," Elena said. "I understand that. But what happens when things stabilize? Will you remember this humility? Or will we return to being servants?" "We want to propose something different," Thala said. She brought up a holographic document. "We call it the Respect Accords. It is a framework for genuine partnership between humanity and the other species of the galaxy." Elena read through the document. It outlined equal representation in a new governing body. It provided reparations for past exploitation. It granted humanity autonomy over its own systems and worlds. It included protections against the kind of abuse that had been common before. "This is good," Elena said slowly. "But documents can be ignored. Treaties can be broken. How do we know this time will be different?" "You do not," Thala said honestly. "We cannot give you guarantees. We can only give you our word and our commitment to enforcement mechanisms. The new government will have oversight. It will have transparency. It will have the power to investigate and punish violations." Elena was quiet for a long time. Outside the window, Earth turned slowly in the darkness. She thought about all the humans who had died, all the families torn apart, all the suffering caused by the Council's indifference. She thought about revenge. It would be easy to let the galaxy suffer, to let the old Council collapse completely, to watch the species that had called humans expendable face the consequences of their own cruelty. But she also thought about the ordinary people in the galaxy, the workers and families who had nothing to do with Council policy, the children dying because medicine was not available, the innocent people suffering because of their leaders' failures. "I will bring this to the United Human Council," Elena said. "I cannot promise they will accept. Many humans want nothing to do with the galaxy anymore. They are happy behind our borders, watching the old order burn." "We understand," Thala said. "Whatever humanity decides, we will respect it. We owe you at least that much." Elena sent the documents to Earth. The debate that followed lasted 3 days. Representatives argued passionately on both sides. Some wanted permanent isolation, e.c. HFY. Others saw an opportunity to reshape the galaxy into something better. The vote was close. In the end, humanity agreed to conditional re-engagement. They would work with the reform faction. They would help rebuild essential systems, but they would do so as equals, with guarantees enforced by human oversight. The old council learned of the negotiations when Thala announced them publicly. The arbiter was furious. He called it betrayal. He demanded that Thala and her allies be arrested. Instead, more council members joined Thala's faction. Within days, the council was split down the middle. The galaxy faced a choice: follow the old ways into darkness, or accept a new path built on respect and equality. The fracture was complete. Two competing visions for the galaxy's future, and humanity, once dismissed as expendable, now held the balance of power between them. The arbiter stood in his private chambers staring at a holographic display. It showed a map of the galaxy. Blue sectors represented territories still loyal to his faction of the old council. Green sectors showed those who had joined Representative Thala and her reformists. The map was mostly green now. Only the core worlds remained blue. And even there, support was wavering. He had one card left to play. One weapon that would remind the galaxy who held real power. The subjugation array had been built thousands of years ago by a species long extinct. It was a weapon designed to break the will of entire civilizations. The Council had kept it secret, hidden in a secure facility at the edge of known space. It had never been fired, but simulations showed its power. One blast could cripple a planet's infrastructure, sending it back to pre-industrial technology. The Arbiter had spent weeks having it quietly moved into position. It now orbited in dark space, pointed at Earth. He had not wanted to use it. Even he understood that deploying such a weapon would make him a monster in the eyes of history. But history was written by victors, and he intended to win. Sir. His military advisor entered the chamber. The weapon is ready. But I must advise against this course of action. If we fire on Earth, into the range. If we fire on Earth, the humans will understand that defiance has consequences, the Arbiter interrupted. The reformist faction will lose their most powerful ally. The galaxy will see that the Council's authority is absolute. Or the galaxy will see us as tyrants, the advisor said quietly. The galaxy will see us as strong, the Arbiter corrected. Strength is what maintains order. Fear is what prevents chaos. The humans have made the galaxy forget this. It is time for a reminder. He activated the communication link to the weapon platform. This is Council Authority Alpha. You are authorized to begin final targeting sequence. Target: Earth. Prepare to fire on my command. The acknowledgement came back. Understood, Authority Alpha. Final sequence initiated. Weapon will be ready to fire in 10 minutes. The Arbiter allowed himself a thin smile. In 10 minutes, humanity's defiance would end. In 10 minutes, the old order would be restored. He did not know that human intelligence had been tracking the weapon since it left its storage facility. He did not know that every human technician who had ever performed maintenance on the array had installed fail-safes. He did not know that the moment his firing command was given, those fail-safes would activate, and he certainly did not know that humanity had no intention of letting the weapon fire at all. On Earth, alarms sounded in the United Human Council's command center. Admiral Wright watched the tactical display as the array powered up. It is aimed at us, an officer reported. Time to firing. 9 minutes. Can we intercept? Wright asked. Not in time. The weapon is too far away. Even if we launched everything we have right now, we would not reach it before it fires. Elena Vasquez stood next to Wright. She was calm. We do not need to reach it, she said. Execute protocol. Checkmate. Wright nodded. He spoke into his communicator. All stations, this is command. Execute protocol checkmate. Authorization. Vasquez Wright Delta. Across human space, communication arrays activated. They sent a tight beam transmission toward the subjugation array. The transmission contained a single code sequence. On the array, the weapon systems began to power up. Energy readings climbed. The firing sequence progressed normally. The crew operating it saw no problems. Then, at 7 minutes to firing, something changed. The targeting systems locked onto new coordinates. Not Earth. Something else. The crew tried to override it. They could not. The override controls did not respond. The weapon had been taken over by an external signal. The new target locked in. The old Council headquarters station. Sir, a panicked voice came over the Arbiter's communicator. The weapon is not responding. The targeting has changed. It is pointing at... The Arbiter looked at his own tactical display. He saw the weapon's new target. He felt ice in his veins. Shut it down, he commanded. Emergency shutdown. Now. We are trying, sir. The controls are not responding. The Arbiter ran from his chambers. Around him, alarms began to sound. Other council members poured into the hallways. They had seen the tactical displays. They knew what was about to happen. Evacuate, someone shouted. Everyone to the emergency ships. The station descended into chaos. Council members and staff ran for the docking bays. Ships launched in every direction, fleeing the station as fast as their engines could carry them. The Arbiter reached his personal ship. He looked back at the station he had ruled from for 30 years. Part of him wanted to stay, to go down with his vision of order. But survival instinct won. He boarded the ship and launched. From a safe distance, he watched as the subjugation array completed its firing sequence. The weapon that was supposed to break humanity instead locked onto the very symbol of Council authority. Then, with 5 seconds to firing, the weapon shut down. The energy readings dropped to 0. The firing sequence aborted. The array did not fire. On Earth, Elena Vasquez spoke into the Galactic Broadcast Network. Every species in the galaxy was watching. They had heard about the weapon. They had seen the evacuations. They were waiting to see what would happen. Citizens of the galaxy, Elena said. Her voice was clear and strong. Moments ago, the old council attempted to use a weapon of mass destruction against Earth. They intended to murder billions of humans for the crime of demanding to be treated with respect. Images appeared on screens across the galaxy. They showed the array powering up. They showed it targeting Earth, then retargeting the council station. They showed the attempted override and the final shutdown. We could have let the weapon fire, Elena continued. We had control of it. We could have destroyed the council station and everyone on it. We could have shown the old council the same mercy they intended to show us. She paused. We chose not to. Not because we are weak. Not because we forgive what they tried to do. We chose not to because we are not like them. We do not believe in acceptable losses. We do not believe any life is expendable, not even the lives of those who would destroy us. The Arbiter, watching from his escape ship, felt something he had not felt in decades. However, Elena said, and her voice turned cold, actions have consequences. The old council has shown itself willing to commit genocide to maintain power. They have forfeited any claim to legitimate authority. As of this moment, humanity recognizes only the reform government led by Representative Thala. We call on all species in the galaxy to do the same. Across the galaxy, the response was immediate. Species after species announced their support for the reform government. The old council's remaining allies abandoned them. Within hours, the Arbiter found himself leading a government that governed nothing. Representative Thala addressed the galaxy from the reformists' temporary headquarters. The old council has fallen. Not through violence, but through the exposure of its own moral bankruptcy. We will build something new. Something better. The Galactic Assembly will be founded on principles of equality, transparency, and respect for all species. She paused. And humanity will be equal members of this assembly. Not servants, not expendable workers, equal partners in shaping our shared future. The trials began 3 months later. The Arbiter and his closest allies faced justice, not from humanity, but from their own people. The charges were extensive. Corruption, exploitation, attempted genocide, abuse of power. The evidence was overwhelming. Much of it had been documented by humans who had seen the crimes firsthand. The Arbiter stood in the courtroom and listened to the testimonies. Families of soldiers who had died in unnecessary wars, workers who had been exploited, species that had been abandoned, and humans, so many humans, each with a story of loss and suffering. When it was his turn to speak, the Arbiter had no defense. The evidence was undeniable. He had believed he was maintaining order. He had believed strength and fear were necessary. He had believed some lives were acceptable losses. He had been wrong. The sentence was exile. He would live out his days on a remote world, stripped of power and authority, with nothing but time to reflect on what his arrogance had cost. The new Galactic Assembly took shape over the following year. Humanity sent representatives who worked alongside aliens as equals. The Respect Accords became the foundation of the new government. Oversight committees were established. Transparency was mandated. Exploitation was criminalized. Elena Vasquez stood at the dedication ceremony for the new assembly headquarters. She gave the closing speech. A year ago, humanity stood before the old council and asked for basic compassion, she said. We were told that our lives were expendable, that our suffering was acceptable, that we should be grateful for the opportunity to serve. She looked around at the representatives from hundreds of species. We could have responded with violence. We could have sought revenge. Instead, we chose a different path. We chose to reveal the truth. We chose to step back and let the galaxy see what it was losing. We chose to give those who believed in something better a chance to build it. She smiled. It was the first genuine smile many had seen from her in months. Today, we stand not as servants, but as partners. Not as expendable, but as essential. Not as grateful recipients of scraps, but as equal builders of civilization. The assembly chamber erupted in applause. It was not perfect. Many problems remained. Trust would take time to rebuild. Scars would take time to heal. But it was a beginning, an honest beginning. A beginning built on respect rather than exploitation. The Arbiter, watching from his exile, saw the dedication ceremony. He saw the applause. He saw humanity standing as equals in the galaxy they had helped build. He understood finally what he should have understood from the beginning. The ones you take for granted are often the ones holding everything together. And when you call them expendable, when you dismiss their worth, when you forget that respect must be earned and maintained, you do not hurt just them, you destroy yourself. The day humanity snapped had come and gone. The consequences had reshaped the galaxy. And in the end, it was not violence that won, or weapons, or force. It was the simple truth that every life matters, that every contribution has value, that respect is not a gift to be granted, but a right to be recognized. The galaxy had learned that lesson. It had learned it the hard way, but it had learned. And humanity, once called expendable, had taught them.